Peter Badel, mate. Didn't get a chance to catch up yesterday after the fight, mate. But Tim Tszyu, a pretty dominant win yesterday, mate. Your reaction, and I didn't catch the end of the broadcast. What was sort of said on the broadcast with Paulie as well?
Yeah, there was some good post-fight analysis from Paulie Malignaggi. He made some good insights into Tim, and Tim actually joined us on the panel at one stage and for about 5 minutes or so. And Paulie was actually quite honest with him. He spoke to him pretty candidly on camera, telling him some of the things he liked and some of the things he didn't like. And Tim took it pretty well. I mean, there was nothing too savage, of course, but there were some pros and cons from the performance, and ultimately look, job done, box ticked, and now Tim goes on the fight, of course, the great Errol Spence, fitness and injury permitting for both of them. So look, it's a massive fight, a legacy fight for Tim, and I really hope that he can now get the job done against Spence. It'd be a massive win. It'd be probably the greatest win of his career in many senses. So, but we'll analyse, I guess, the Nurja fight now, Jay, and what it means for him and what we thought of that performance.
What did you think of it, mate? There were stages there where it looked like Tim could get him out of there and finish the job, and there were also stages there where, to me, looked like he was kind of caught in between styles as well.
Yeah, look, how do I say? I would say it was solid, not spectacular. Like I think, look, let's give Tim first. Let's look at some of the positives. I thought, look, he won every round, as you just mentioned. It was a total shutout, 100-88, all three judges. So you can't bag a fighter that's won all 10 rounds. Look, I must say, my phone lit up yesterday with all sorts of observations from people in the boxing community. Some were positive, most, to be honest, were negative. But I just want to probably say, I reckon the jury's out at the moment on Pedro Diaz and how his style is meshing with Tim. Now, that's understandable. Like, Tim's only into two camps now with Pedro. The first was almost, potentially, you could say, a little bit expedited or rushed because Diaz was in camp, obviously, with McAllister, and he had to arrive in Sydney at the last minute. So I think we need to give Tim time with Pedro Diaz to bed down their style and get that dynamic flowing. And that'll probably take more than two camps. I say pros and cons for me, Jay. Let's start with the pros. I really liked his jab early. I thought early on you could see that he's been working on that jab and setting up the fight nicely. So a tick there for me. I thought Tim was committed with his jab early. It was strong, and as a byproduct of that, it's no surprise that Nurja got dropped in the fourth round. I think that was it was predicated on the jab work from Tim, the lead hand work, and then some of his beautiful variation and speed. I think he did some really nice stuff, not only variation of shot selection, but variation of tempo. There were times when he slowed it down, picked it up. So I think Nurja was struggling, really. I mean, he didn't have the athleticism, the fast twitch, or the class to really go with Tim in that sense. And so I think Tim had control of the fight for most of the time. So positives there for me. Negatives, look, I would have loved to have seen the killer blow. I really think I want to see the killer back in Tim. And I think for me, that would have been the icing on the cake. Because to me, I don't think he was ever in any real danger of losing the fight. But I just wanted to see him land that killer blow. I thought he should have finished off Nurja in the fourth or fifth round. Another concern, there's a couple of times where he heard the clapper and then he walked back to his corner before the bell had gone. I've never seen that before from Tim. That was mystifying to me. There was about 3 or 4 seconds in the round, and he almost turned his back on Nurja and walked back to the corner. That was really strange. I've never seen that from Tim. Maybe he was just thinking, "Oh, look, I'll get him in the next round. I'll finish him off." So that was another concern. And also, I just felt there were times where he just opened the door for Nurja. Like, even in the 10th round, you could almost have given Nurja the 10th round. It felt like Tim clocked off a little bit. So I just felt at times, I know, for example, the Tim that beat Mendoza, for me, this is only my view, that was his greatest performance. That was his masterclass that day in October 23. I thought it was a slicing and dicing of Mendoza. It was just magnificent. And I just didn't see that pop and crackle that he's got in his punches. So, look, maybe that's still to come because he has been through the wars. He's had some tough fights. He's taken some punishment. But they're the sort of negatives from the performance. And I think the positive to take from the negative is that I think he's got another gear and he's going to have to find one if he wants to beat Errol Spence.
Yeah, there were some comments made about his you're a physical specimen yourself, Pete. An athlete of sorts. What about his physical physique? He slimmed down a lot. There was some comments on that, and that's obviously to aid the movement and the agility that Pedro's working on. But the counter to that is you lose your power and your physical imposing style that Tszyu used to fight with when he was with Igor. So how does he balance that? That is the thing that people have pointed out.
Yeah, well, please don't call me a physical specimen, Macca. The heaviest I lift is the Big Mac at Macca's, mate. So you're giving me too much credit there. But look, I'd say with Tim, I still feel like I haven't seen anything too new yet. Like I still think the mechanics are there, and to me, now for Tim, I almost believe it's not skill based, it's psychology based. I want to know whether he's really recovered mentally from some of the punishment that he took in those fights against Fundora twice and Murtazaliev. Because even Jay, I watched a bit of the highlights of the first Fundora fight a couple of days ago in preparation for the Nurja analysis, and I saw a ruthless Tim in those first 2 rounds. He was going after the fight. He was making the fight. He was walking forward. He almost had total disdain for Fundora. I was like, mate, whatever. I don't care about your height. I don't care about your reach. I'll walk through the fire and I'll put you away. I'm prepared to get burnt. I don't know if now Tim is prepared to walk through the fire and get burnt to the same degree as he was previously. And I think that comes back to psychology. I know Sean Porter has talked about PTSD. So, look, I still don't feel Tim's finished. But I probably wanted to see a more emphatic performance. I think No Limit probably wanted to see a real statement knockout as a prelude and a preamble promotionally to sell the Spence fight. But at the end of the day, I still think Tim did some good things in that fight. I think he should be happy with his performance overall. But there was a few times, even technically, where I thought he squared up a few times and he punched off the wrong foot. And I think world-class fighters, we're watching that, cognizant of it, and Errol Spence would see the technicalities there and the some of the foibles and flaws and be able to pick them apart in a way that Nurja wasn't, because Nurja just didn't have the class. He had the courage, but not the class. And so let's give Nurja a rap too. He was really brave, really tough, but I don't think he was ever in any real danger, Tim. And one thing that worried me a little bit, Jai, was when Tim said in the post-fight analysis, and credit to him for being honest, but Ben Damon asked him whether he was, wanting to get him out of there. And Tim said, I tried to get him out. I tried to take him out. And that raised my eyebrows because I thought there were some rounds between 6 and 8 and 9 where he was almost in a sparring session. That's what it looked like to me, that he was working on some nuances, working on some angles and almost trying to get some rounds out. So when he said he tried to take him out and couldn't, that worried me because that's what I want to see again, that the killer in Tim Tszyu.
Yeah, it's almost like he's got to fully be comfortable and happy with that boxing style, and he's got to commit to it through the whole fight and not revert back to his old style because perhaps he doesn't have the physicality that he had in that first Fundora fight. Mate, Spence, what happens from here, mate? We had a chat last week. You said things were all agreed. What needs to happen from now to get that fight on?
Yeah, well, look, as I said just the other week, they've agreed to terms, is what I've been told, and now they'll have to work out the minutiae and the formalities around location, price, what they get paid, all those sorts of things. Now, I know No Limit are still hopeful of having it in Australia, which would be massive. I mean, one of the biggest fights down under where we've seen right up there with Horn Pacquiao if they can pull it off. But I just think economically it might be a little bit of a challenge. But there is a sentiment that Spence wouldn't mind coming to Australia because promotionally, I think there's a feeling that these are almost two crossroads fighters, right? They've gone through adversity in different ways. They're probably both past their best in some senses, some people would say. And so it really is a sink or swim moment for both men. Why it could be a career ender, whoever loses. So the feeling is maybe there's not the same appetite for a Spence Tszyu fight in America than there is in Australia. So I think No Limit will exhaust every avenue to have it here in Australia, whether that's in on the Gold Coast, maybe Sydney. I think Sydney, we saw a great event with Tony Harris and, of course, a Kudos Bank. So I think that's a great indoor arena, 20,000 capacity. That'd be a wonderful fight. So let's see if that can happen.
Your light's going off. There he is. He's back.
Sorry, I'm at the gym, Macca. The lights have just gone off.
I told you you're a physical specimen, mate. Won't keep you long, mate. You got to get back on that lat pull down.
Among other things.
Mate, what was the sentiment you mentioned earlier from Paulie? Haven't had a chance to speak to Paulie. Tried to grab him last night, but I got an exclusive with Tim Tszyu. I don't know if you saw it, but what did Paulie say to Tim? Was he critical of Tim's performance? What did he say? And how does he think Tszyu Spence goes?
Yeah, well, I think Paulie, he wasn't hypercritical, but I think his feelings were similar to what we've just spoken about, that he thought Tim was coasting in rounds 6 to 8 and 9. He thought Tim was almost pulling some of his punches and trying to work on some shots and work on some things that Pedro Diaz may have spoken to him about. So Paulie, he thinks that Tim could still beat Spence because, let's face it, inactivity is a sin in boxing, and it'll be 3 years before Spence has fought when he gets in the ring against Tim. In that time, Tim has had 7 fights, so you might be able to question the outcome of some of those fights for Tim and how he's performed. The one thing you can't deny is he's stayed active, he's got rounds, and he's tested himself against the best in the world in the 154 division. I mean, he's fought Fendora twice. He's fought Murtazaliev, and surely those fights have to improve him in some way. While he would have taken some punishment, surely as a cerebral fighter that we like to think Tim is, he would have picked up some tactics and some understandings and learnings along the way. So that can only help him against Spence. I think Paulie feels like it would be a better. Well, I spoke to him after. Paulie feels like it'd be a better fight in Australia than America. So that's interesting for Paulie to say that, because the one thing he did raise, he made a really good point. He said, Pete, my concern is if it is in Dallas, in Texas. He says, as a boxer himself, he goes, I got robbed in Texas. He questions the judging there. He says they'll always go with the hometown decision. So he goes, my fear for Tim is if he goes to Texas, he'll get robbed. So he believes it'd be a better fight for him in Australia, down under, and maybe the judges are favourable to him here. So look, I still hope it's in Australia. It'd be wonderful for Tim. But the greatest thing out of this is that Tim gets a massive fight, a legacy fight.
2 more, mate. I didn't ask Tim about this last night because I didn't think it was a story. I thought it was a bit of a beat up. But Jeff Fenech left the venue yesterday at the end of round 7. Did that come up in the coverage at all? And do you think there's much in that? I mean, I didn't know what to make of it.
It didn't come up in the coverage, but I spoke to Jeff 3 days before the fight. And look, as we know, Jeff's apparently been appointed as, this advisor to Tim as part of this new overhaul. But then we've since heard reports that he's not really involved. They don't really use him. And I don't know, Jeff's been pretty critical of Pedro Diaz. He doesn't like some of his techniques. I mean, I spoke to him the other day and he was saying, Pete, I don't understand what he's doing running around the gym, catching a ball. He's training him like a dog, not a human. And that was a pretty strong line from Jeff. But, so Jeff's critical of Diaz. But one thing Jeff's always maintained is his love for Tim Tszyu. He's passionate about him. I wouldn't read too much in him leaving early. Maybe Jeff's said, look, I've seen enough after 6 or 7 rounds. Maybe he thinks he hasn't seen anything new from Tim, and he knew that by that point Nurja was never going to beat Tim or stop him. So he probably had seen enough and wanted to beat the traffic home. But look, overall, I still hope that Jeff can be involved in some way in a positive way for Tim, because he's our greatest boxer ever, and I know he's got a great regard for the Tszyu family, not only Tim but also his mother and Nikita. So I think Tim can be a better fighter if he's got someone of Jeff's gravitas and standing involved, because that can only elevate him as a fighter, knowing he's got the support of someone like Jeff Fenech.
Pete, we also had Sammy Goodman made a good fight in there as well on the card.
We did, and you know what? I'm glad you mentioned this because I want to give Sam Goodwin a rap here. He was bloody magnificent. That was one of his greatest performances, and I really want to give him a rap because a lot of times in his career, Sam hasn't got the credit he deserves. He's in a smaller division. He doesn't always get the gravitas or the kudos, but he was unbelievable. And I think he showed he's probably in the top three pound for pound boxers in Australia right now. Like I'd have to say, Oppenheimer is number one, and it's a struck match between Paro and Goodman for number two. They're in the grand final because that performance. I mean, I knew before, I said in the coverage before the fight, this was a danger fight for Sam. That I watched footage of this Argentinian Ruiz. He was a danger man. He was wild, and it was a great narrative of wild, raw explosiveness against calculated intelligence. And Sam Goodman, it did have vibes for me of the Ray's Valim fight, where he it was nip and tuck for the first 6 rounds, and then Sam Goodman almost sucks the life out of opponents with his fitness, and his back half of that fight yesterday was unbelievable. I mean, his movement, his eye, his ability to get in the pocket and then shift out within to a safe range. He's just got beautiful IQ, and he also has a bloody good chin. I mean, it's an underrated weapon that he's got. I mean, he can take a punch. I mean, I remember when he fought Warrawood. Warrawood nailed him with some real shots, and he just walked through them. So Sam's got a great chin. He would have learned from the loss to Nick Ball at featherweight in the world title, and I just loved the way he weathered the storm early yesterday, and then made a tactical adjustment in the fourth or fifth round where he started to go in the pocket, which could have been seen as a dangerous tactic against a guy who was rough and ready and prepared to bang. But he just navigated that beautifully. And they talk about the calves almost being the second heartbeat in boxing. And his calves, he was still moving so well in the 10th round, Sam. It was an unbelievable performance, one of his best, and proves to me that he's a world title winner against the right opponent. Like now, I don't think he beats Inoue, but let's say Inoue vacates and moves on. I still think the right opponent, the right time, the right fight. Sam Goodman is world title material. He was bloody excellent. Well done, Sam. That was a great performance.
Well said, Pete. Now, mate, also in the top three in the card, Big Nelson, mate. What did you think of his performance against Jared Wallace?
Mate, I'm going to go from the highs to the lows here. I got to be honest. Look, I always call it as I see it. I thought that was an abysmal performance. There's been so much hype around Nelson. And let's couch this. I know it's only his second fight, and he's a footy fighter. He's a crossover star. He's got a long way to go, and he's 30 years old learning a new craft. So let's cut him a little bit of slack. But for all the hype, for all the big talk from Big Nasty, he won ugly. And what worried me was from his first fight to his second, his jab's terrible. I mean, it's limp. There's no force behind it. He doesn't commit to the jab. And it's the fundamental punch in boxing. Like if you can't land a stiff jab, you're no hope long term. And to even be mentioning Terra Moana in conversations about fights, I mean, that's a disgrace. I mean, Terra Moana would put him away in one round. So, look, Nelson's only going to get better, and Team Ellis will ensure that he gets better. But what I saw yesterday, he lost the first 2 rounds against Jared Wallace. And the other thing that worried me was that every time he got hit, he almost seemed to panic and was looking to tie up. I mean, rather than be a 200-centimetre monster who is supposed to be a killer that has the size and the presence to destroy anyone, the minute he got hit, he was looking for an easy way out to sort of avoid combat zones. And J-Wall was prepared to take the fight to him. So my concern is moving forward for Nelson, unless he's prepared to bang and he's prepared to get in the pocket or prepared to at least use his long levers with some thrust behind his jab, he's not going to go anywhere in the sport. I hope he ends up being a national title winner. He's probably got the power to do it. If he just lands one shot, it's all over. But from what we saw yesterday, he's got a long, long way to go.
The last one, mate. Nikita Tszyu announcement expected in a couple of days now.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and it's interesting to see his opponent, Oscar Diaz, 16-0 Spaniard, 6 knockouts. So it doesn't look like he has a lot of power. It's actually hard to find a lot of footage online of him. But I think it's an interesting test. I mean, I've been seeing reports that say it's his first international opponent, but it's not. Of course, he fought Lulzim Ismaili in that one round debacle recently. So look, I think I just hope Nikita gets a good rough and ready test out of this, because he's fought basically 3 rounds in nearly 2 years. And that's a concern for me at an age where Nikita's 28 now. He's starting to, he'll get to his 30s before he knows it. So we need to see him get tested more. I want to see more activity. We need more output from him. And I still believe that he'll surprise a lot of people. I don't think he's domestic level. I think Nikita, the one thing Nikita's got that Tim hasn't is one punch, severe power. Like maybe not one punch knockout power, but he's got fight turning power where he can be under the pump, as he was against Dylan Biggs, Cohen Mazudia, Jack Brubaker, and then he just lands one shot that really hurts someone. And that's the one thing about Nikita that always keeps him in a fight is yes, he gets hit, but he's got supreme power that can hurt blokes and turn a fight. And the one thing I do think about Nikita that Tim may have lost a little bit is that killer. I think Nikita's just. I think he'll go out on his shield. Nikita, he's a dead set warrior, and I would love to see how he handles Diaz, because this guy's unbeaten, and when you're unbeaten, you've always got that greater level of self belief, knowing that you haven't been taken to deep waters and drowned. So for Nikita, this could be a technical matchup too. Spaniards generally good technically. So it'll be a fascinating fight. He's world ranked, this guy. So it's a real test for Nikita. I hope he gets through it.
Legend, Pete, mate. Always appreciate your time. Champion.
No worries, Macca. Anytime, mate.